The millionaire's voice echoed across the polished marble hall, like he owned not just the mansion, but the air inside it, the world outside it, and every person foolish enough to stand in his shadow. Donovan Hale, a man whose face had appeared on magazine covers with captions, like the man who can buy time and the king of impossible. Deals leaned back in his gold-trimmed wheelchair and smirked as though pain itself were beneath him. His spinal injury had left him unable to stand for years. And though he had access to the world's finest doctors, none of them had managed to fix him. He lived bitter, angry, and cruelly amused by the desperation of anyone who tried to help him. That's why. When the boy walked into the mansion, quiet, small, carrying nothing but a worn backpack and eyes that looked like they'd seen storms, Donovan burst out laughing, shaking the champagne in his hand. "Heal me for $1 million, he announced loudly. His voice exaggerated for the crowd of guests who had gathered for his annual charity gala. $1 million. That's the price. If you can make me walk, I'll make you rich. If you can't." He tapped the wheelchair armrest mockingly. "Then at least we'll have something to laugh about tonight." The guests chuckled, though some looked uneasy. The boy didn't seem bothered. He simply stood there, steady, calm, staring at the man like he wasn't a billionaire, but a puzzle he had already solved. His name was Eli, only 14, living with his grandmother in a tiny home near the edge of town. They didn't have much. But what they did have was dignity, something Donovan Hale couldn't purchase, even with the billions in his accounts. Eli hadn't come for the money. He hadn't even come voluntarily. Mrs. Kensington, the head maid who practically raised Donovan, had dragged the boy in by the hand. Whispering frantically, "Donovan, please, let him try. I saw what he did for my husband. His pain was gone in minutes. Just let him try." Donovan had scoffed at her, but allowed it only because humiliation was his favorite entertainment. The boy slowly approached Donovan, each step echoing through the room. Some guests began recording. Others whispered theories, calling him a scammer, a street kid, a wannabe healer. Eli said nothing. Instead, he gently placed his backpack on the floor and kneeled beside Donovan's chair. The billionaire rolled his eyes, bored already, but Eli's hands steady, warm. Calculated, rested lightly on Donovan's lower back. The moment his palms touched him, Donovan gasped. It wasn't pain. It was something else, like electricity without the burn, like warmth without heat. His chest tightened, as if his body recognized something his mind didn't. The room grew silent. Eli closed his eyes. Donovan tried to speak, but no sound came out, his voice trapped in his throat as a soft hum filled the room. It wasn't mystical. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, almost surgical. The billionaire felt pressure release from deep within his spine, places doctors had stabbed, injected, scanned, and failed to fix. He felt nerves he thought were dead flicker awake like old light bulbs sparking back to life. His fingers twitched. His toes curled. His heart raced. Eli opened his eyes, and for a moment Donovan saw something in them, an old knowledge. Something far beyond the world of stocks, wealth, and power. Eli leaned back, breathed deeply, and whispered, "Stand up." The crowd laughed nervously. Donovan scoffed again, angry now, embarrassed. "Child, I haven't stood in." And then his voice stopped. Because his foot moved, his knee bent, his leg trembled. And before he could process what was happening, he was rising slow, shaking, confused, but rising. The room erupted into screams, gasps, and disbelief. The billionaire stood on his own two legs. The glass in his hand fell to the floor and shattered as guests scrambled backward. Cameras flashed. People shouted. Some began crying. Donovan stared at Eli like the boy had rewritten the laws of physics before his eyes. And then terror struck him. Not relief, not joy. Terror. Because he realized something was very wrong. I wasn't surprised. Not even a little. It was as if the boy had known exactly what would happen, down to the moment Donovan stood. The billionaire's mouth trembled as he whispered, "What? What are you?" Before Eli could answer, a loud banging echoed through the mansion doors, shaking the walls. Mrs. Kensington paled instantly. "No, not now," she whispered. The front doors burst open, wind rushing through the hall. Men in dark suits stormed inside, their badges flashing under the chandelier light. The tallest one shouted, "Step away from the boy. He's coming with us." Eli's face didn't change. Donovan, now standing, staggered in front of him instinctively, shocked at his own sudden protective reaction. The agents raised their hands, not with guns, but with something worse: documents. Orders and seals of authority that looked decades old. "You don't know what he is," the lead agent warned. "You don't understand what you've unleashed." Donovan's world spun. The crowd panicked, and Eli simply whispered, "Part 1 isn't over yet." Donovan turned to him, breathless, confused, scared in a way he hadn't felt since childhood. Eli continued softly, "Because the part you don't know yet is that I didn't heal you. I just removed what was blocking you." Donovan swallowed hard. "And what was that?" Eli looked toward the agents, then back at the billionaire. "Something that belonged to them." The agents lunged forward. Guests screamed. Donovan grabbed Eli's arm just as the lights exploded above them, darkness swallowing the room whole. "And somewhere in that darkness," Eli whispered, "if you want the truth, follow me." The billionaire had never followed anyone in his life, but his legs moved on their own. And that was when everything truly began. Donovan ran blindly after Eli through the darkness, the mansion shuddering under the chaos behind them as agents swept through the hall like a black tide. His legs, newly awakened, trembling but strong, carried him faster than he'd moved in years. And for a moment he didn't know whether the panic in his chest was fear or awe. Eli didn't stumble once. He moved with the certainty of someone who already knew every corner of the mansion, every echo of its halls, every second that Donovan had left before the truth caught up to him. They burst through a side door into the night air, the grounds lit by moonlight and the faint glow of the security lamps that hadn't been shattered yet. Donovan reached out to steady himself, grabbing a marble pillar, panting hard. What are they?" he demanded, though the words came out more like a plea than a billionaire's command. Eli stayed quiet, listening, his head tilted. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he said, "We have less than 2 minutes." "For what?" Donovan snapped, but the boy was already moving again, sprinting toward the hedge wall bordering the estate. Donovan followed, his mind racing with fragments of fear agents, secrets, his legs functioning again, and the look in Eli's eyes that said the boy understood things no child should. Behind them, lights flickered violently, and Donovan heard boots crunching gravel, growing closer. "There!" a voice shouted, and beams of flashlights cut through the night. Eli grabbed Donovan's arm and yanked him toward a maintenance gate, small and rusted, the kind Donovan forgot even existed on his massive property. "This way," Eli said quietly. But as they reached the gate, Donovan froze. A sharp pain, cold and strange, shot up his spine. Not like before, not nerve pain, but something sharper, like an echo of a memory his body remembered even if his mind didn't. He staggered forward, dropping to one knee. What is that?" he gasped. Eli turned back, his expression finally cracking, fear leaking through his calm mask. "It's waking up," he whispered. Donovan's heart thudded. "What is waking up?" But Eli didn't answer. He pressed his palm to Donovan's back again, and the pain vanished instantly like a switch turned off. "Move," the boy ordered. Donovan obeyed. They slipped through the gate and into the narrow service road behind the estate, running deeper into the trees that lined the property. The night swallowed them, and for a moment it felt safe, but only for a moment. A dark SUV screeched to a stop at the top of the hill, headlights blasting through the woods. More agents spilled out, shouting, "Eli!" "Stop." Donovan grabbed the boy's arm. "Why are they after you?" he demanded, breath ragged. Eli looked at him with eyes too old to knowing. "Because I'm not supposed to exist." Donovan stared at him, stunned. Before he could speak, a rustling sound came from the trees beside them. Mrs. Kensington stepped out, her face tight with fear. "This way," she urged. "I knew they'd come for him. I knew they wouldn't stop." Donovan wanted to scream, to demand answers. But the night didn't give him time. Mrs. Kensington led them along a hidden dirt path behind the property, one she used years ago for emergency escapes when Donovan was a child. "Why are you helping him?" Donovan hissed. "Why risk everything?" She stopped just long enough to look Donovan in the eyes, look heavy with meaning. "Because his existence is not a threat," she said. "It's a miracle. And miracles terrify people who can't control them." They continued running until they reached an old caretaker's cabin abandoned. Dark, almost collapsing, but Mrs. Kensington pushed them inside. The agent's shouts grew more distant. For the first time in minutes, Donovan allowed himself a breath. Inside the cabin, Eli moved toward the dusty table, placing his hands on the wood like he was grounding himself. Donovan leaned against the wall, shaking, trying to quiet his spiraling thoughts. "Explain," he demanded finally. "Everything." Eli didn't look up. "You were never supposed to stay broken," he said. "Your injury wasn't natural. Someone made sure you couldn't walk. Someone very rich. Someone very close." Donovan's pulse spiked. "Who?" he whispered. Eli finally lifted his gaze. "Your brother." Donovan felt the world tilt. His brother? Victor Health, polished politician, the golden son of their family. The one who'd stood at Donovan's hospital bed years ago looking devastated, promising justice. "That's impossible," Donovan spat. "He loves me." Eli shook his head softly. "He loves power more." The words hit Donovan like a punch. Images rushed through his mind: Victor, encouraging Donovan to approve certain business deals from his hospital bed. Victor stepping in as acting CEO. Victor shaping the empire Donovan built. "No," Donovan murmured, lost. "No. That can't be." A loud thud slammed against the cabin door, shaking the entire structure. Donovan jolted. Eli stepped back, eyes narrowing. A voice boomed outside, clear and commanding. "Victor Hale." "Donnie," he called calmly, "open the door. Let's talk." Donovan's blood ran cold. Mrs. Kensington covered her mouth in horror. Eli whispered, "He's not here to talk." The door rattled again, harder. Donovan suddenly realized something. Terrifying Victor had known instantly where to find them. He'd known about the path, the cabin, everything. And Donovan finally understood what Eli meant by something waking up inside him. It wasn't just healing. It was memory flooding back into the holes Victor had carved out. Donovan remembered the crash, the cold night, the shadow at the edge of the road, the last voice he heard before everything went black. Victor's, his brother's. The truth ripped through him like lightning. "He tried to kill me," Donovan whispered. Eli nodded once. "And he's here to finish what he started." The cabin door began to splinter. Victor's voice was no longer calm. "Donnie, if you open it now, I won't make this painful." Donovan grabbed Eli's shoulder, panic rising. "What do we do?" Eli stepped in front of him, unafraid. "Part 2 ends here," he said quietly. "Part 3 decides everything." The door shattered inward. The door exploded inward in a storm of splintered wood. Victor Hale stepping through with the cold precision of a man who had killed before and would kill again. His tailored suit didn't even wrinkle as agents poured in behind him. Rifles raised, beams of light slicing across the dusty cabin. Donovan instinctively moved in front of Eli, but the boy stepped forward, almost protectively, as though he were shielding Donovan instead. Victor's eyes were razor-sharp, glittering with a hatred that had been hidden for years under brotherly smiles and political speeches. "You should have stayed broken," he said, voice like ice. "You were useful that way." Donovan felt something collapse inside him, something he'd been holding up since childhood. Something woven from trust and shared family dinners and stupid childhood promises whispered in the dark. "You tried to kill me," he said softly, his voice trembling, not from fear but betrayal so deep it left him hollow. Victor didn't deny it, simply tilted his head, as though calculating how long the conversation needed to last before he ended it. "You were going to expose me," Victor said. "You were always too moral for your own good, too soft. Father gave you everything, and he left me scraps." His eyes twitched in unraveling. "I built the empire while you played the hero. And when I tried to take what should have been mine, you said no. So I made sure you couldn't say anything again." Donovan wanted to scream, to punch, to collapse. But Eli placed a hand on his wrist, barely a touch hand. Donovan felt clarity slice through his grief like sunrise breaking stone. Victor stepped forward, lifting a hand. The agents cocked their rifles. "Take the boy," Victor commanded, his voice tightening, "and put my brother back in the condition he belongs in." That was the moment Eli finally changed. Straightened, his breath steadied, and a strange stillness settled around him, as though even the air was listening to him breathe. When he stepped forward, the room seemed to bend with him. One of the agents grabbed his arm, instantly recoiled, screaming, dropping to his knees, clutching his skull as if something inside him had been ripped open. The other agents panicked, raising their rifles. Eli didn't flinch. He simply spoke. One sentence, soft, unhurried. "Put your weapons down," and every single agent obeyed. Rifles hit the floor, bodies froze, eyes widened. The air itself vibrated like an unseen cord had been plucked through the spine of the universe. Victor's face drained of color. "What? What are you?" he whispered. Eli didn't answer. Instead, he turned and gently placed his hand on Donovan's chest, right over the heart. A warmth bloomed outward, not just healing but awakening every broken memory, every suppressed truth, every manipulated shadow Victor had carved out. Donovan saw it all. The night of the crash, Victor's car tailing him, the shove from behind. The whispered apology that wasn't an apology, but a confession. And he saw something else, something Victor didn't know. A memory from childhood. A night when Donovan was 7 and Victor was 10, both hiding in their father's office, listening to their father say that one son was born to lead and the other to obey. That was the moment Victor broke. Donovan understood it now, not to forgive, never that, but to see the wound that had festered into something monstrous. Victor lunged for Eli in panic, but the boy didn't even move. Victor staggered back as though he'd run into an invisible wall, clutching his chest as if the impact had shattered something inside him. His arrogance evaporated, replaced by terror. "Stay away from me," he shrieked, stumbling. "You're not human." Eli stepped forward. "Human," he corrected quietly, "just more awake than you." Victor backed away, slipping on broken wood. His heel caught the edge of the doorframe, and he fell backward onto the cabin floor, gasping for breath. Donovan stared at him as brother, his attempted murderer. The man who had stolen his life and felt nothing but a vast, calm clarity. Eli looked up at Donovan. "Decide," he said. "Do we let him return to power, or do we end what he started?" "Out." Victor choked on his panic. "Don't listen to him. Donnie, he's manipulating you. He's dangerous, you don't know what he is." Donovan cut him off. "I know exactly what he is." Eli didn't blink. Donovan realized the boy wasn't asking whether to kill Victor. He was asking whether Donovan wanted justice or mercy. Victor's gaze darted between them, his voice cracking. "Please, Donnie. I'm your brother." Donovan knelt beside him, staring into the face he once trusted with everything. "You took my life," he whispered. "You won't take his." He stood. Eli the boy nodded. A soft pulse of light rippled from his hand as he lifted it slightly. Victor gasped, then collapsed, unconscious but alive. Donovan felt no triumph. "Only an ending? He'll wake up?" Donovan asked. "Yes," Eli said, "but he will never harm anyone again, not physically, and not from power." Outside, sirens wailed as police and federal agents real ones arrived, alerted by Mrs. Kensington's emergency call. She wiped tears from her cheeks as she hugged Donovan tightly. Eli stepped away, watching the flashing lights approach. Donovan turned to him. "Eli, what happens to you now?" The boy gave a small, sad smile, the kind that felt older than the moonlight touching his face. "People fear what they can't own," he said. "They'll keep coming. Always. Not for who I am, but for what I can do." Donovan felt his chest tighten. "Then stay with me. I'll protect you." Eli shook his head. "You weren't meant to protect me. I was meant to wake you up." He reached out and took Donovan's hand gently. "And now you're whole." Donovan felt a lump rise in his throat. "Will I see you again?" Eli stepped back, the cabin lights flickering oddly as if bending toward him. "When the world needs you to," he whispered, "not before." Then, like sunlight bending through glass and in a blink, Eli was gone. The agents outside rushed in, sirens filling the morning air, Victor being taken into custody, Kensington clutching Donovan's arm, asking if he was okay. Donovan didn't answer. He walked outside, feeling the solid earth beneath legs that now held him with perfect strength. He stared at the rising sun, the first he had ever seen without pain. And somewhere in the wind, he thought he heard a boy's voice. Stay awake. The story ends, here pain ended, truth revealed, and a miracle boy vanished into legend, leaving behind a man finally whole enough to live the life he was meant to lead.